5:30 p.m. on April 10th, 2023. Indication, Commissioner Flood, would you like to pray?
Heavenly Father, thank you for this glorious day, the work that you enable us to do here. We ask that you will help us make wise decisions, good decisions for the county, for the people. And we ask you to bless all the words we say tonight. In Jesus' name,
Amen. All right, approval of the agenda. Before we do so, I'm going to add an item as a resolution concerning the FEMA hazard mitigation grant, property located at 2268 State Route 25, Cottontown, Tennessee, 37048. We voted last month to just basically not do anything with this, and it's been brought up about, it's coming before the full commission, so I wanted to get this before the full commission as well. Since this was voted on in August of 2022, it wasn't specified, it was just basically a carryover appropriation of the previous budget for that item. And so this basically just kind of officially separates us out on this from that FEMA process. So without objection, I'd like to add this as item G under new business. All right. If there is no further questions, have a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion. Motion by Commissioner Klein, second by Commissioner Fuchner. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approval of minutes, have a motion. Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Klein. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Moved. Recognition of the public. When I call your name, if you please come up to the table. Or this area roughly, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. I think it's Michael Bartley. Is that correct? If I said that right. Or we'll move on if he comes back. As an Andy, I can't read the second name. Is that Andy Lee? Okay, sorry. Andy Lee, gone as well. Chris Shoemaker is third. I don't know what that's for. Is it Chris Shoemaker?
Thank you for going away.
Okay. Well, without objection, if you guys wanted to move, these items are for recognition of the public for 1 and 2. These two gentlemen, I think it's for the rezoning, which is just, it's nothing we're voting on tonight. We can, without objection, we can let them speak when we get that in the meeting. I don't really know what this person's for, so what they want to speak on, so what we'll move on. For the chairman, I have none. For the county mayor?
Can I share my comments on the agenda items that will come up?
Sure. Okay. Old business. We got sent back the amending personnel policy for the Sumner County Highway Department. This was from last month. Do I have a motion for discussion? Voted by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Klein. All favor say aye. Discussion? All right. I know I had a question by a commissioner about this, and I don't know if this is probably more for the finance director. I don't know if for anybody here is Commissioner Rogers. You might know the answer to this question at the deal with EMS. I know we went through the process of changing how the hours work for vacations, I think sick, and reclassifying that a little bit. But the question was, is this based on hourly or is this based on salary? Like it's just a day's a day. It doesn't make a difference what the hours were. So that was my understanding. There was a budgetary question that was just going to push over any kind of budgetary issue. My understanding there wasn't, but I don't know fully to answer that question on this. Do you have a question?
Well, it was confusing because there were 4-day weeks and there were 5-day weeks. And I never did quite understand how all of that was going to work. Because it seems to me it's based on hours, but I'm not even sure about that.
All I know that Toby spoke with us, and they do 10-hour days.
Right.
And then there's the 5th day that they're off, and because that way they get the 40 hours in. But somehow or another, I think they were having, Toby said, this is from Toby, I don't know his experience, but he said they were having to use PTO, if they were wanting to take a full day off, or if they like were given a day off, like for some kind of thing, where they had to always grab 2 hours of their PTO, even if they got paid 3 hours.
Right.
So that's what it was about. I don't know the solution, but that's what it was about.
Yeah, and I was reading through it today, and I didn't see that it was, I didn't see that it was addressed. It may have been addressed.
Commissioner Sherwood, do you know there's a budgetary impact on this as far as?
I don't know that there's a budgetary impact. I haven't heard one direction or the other. I haven't gotten an answer on it.
I think that was part of the why we didn't take action on
It was.
this. In budget. It was just a budget.
It was.
Okay, so
And we didn't take action on it because we didn't know if there was going to be a budgetary impact. I don't know that I have a direct answer on that. I mean, you could argue, I think there was some discussion, I know there was discussion that all the other departments operate this way. And, you know, at the end of the day, you could argue, I guess, that it would be a moot point because we're about to go into the next budget cycle, right? So we're going to be able to control whatever budgetary impacts would come to that. And so there is an argument that, like, if we're going to make this change, to make it now before we go into that budget cycle, but I don't have a perfect analysis on this, so.
well, the question was posed to me, is this different than the other county departments? Is there inconsistency with other constitutional officers and how they operate versus different departments? Is it a different standard? I'm not sure. It seemed to me from the highway superintendent that he was trying to catch up to the other departments. But again, I don't know, are you creating more?
I can't speak for the highway department. I know on the EMS side, and the sheriff's side, the only issue, quote unquote, that we had there was the retirement. And there was a clause that finance would have to back their dates up for retirement and make those dates count toward their TCRS retirement at the rate of accrual of what it was at the time of which that retirement rate was given to the board. So we had a date set when the resolution passed that the retirement from that point forward would count and accrue at a rate that was different from that point backwards. Then that was the only issue that we had with TCRS. There's not really a budgetary that I could see or that I was made aware of from finance director that it's still 40 hours within that work week. And I think that part of, and just knowing the system because I've been around it and worked in it, part of the issue of the highway department is the county only recognizes an 8-hour holiday. And when they take their holiday off, the employees have to take 2 hours of vacation time to make a 10-hour shift, or they're 2 hours short on their check. So if
So it seems like it's more trying to make them whole.
Correct.
It's more not adding impact budgetary versus making them whole on.
it's more trying to catch them up and get them where they really should have been all along, probably.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that fire and EMS do that. If you're working a 10-hour day, then, or sheriff's department EMS, if you're working a 10-hour day and you take a day off, you're getting that extra 2 hours, and you're not having to take PTO. Is that a true statement?
Correct.
So I mean, zooming out real quick, the budgetary impact would be, do you have enough people to do the work that needs to be done, given that, you're kind of stacked up, you're taking one person off, you're taking out a 10-hour day, so out of a team of 5, that comes up to 1 potentially that's short. And like, again, when I start to think about that, we control that through how many FTEs the highway department requests. And so we have control. Numbers on it, or we just want to say, hey, everybody else is doing it that way. We can control it during budget by controlling the number of FTEs that are applied toward highway. And then we would, to your point, Mr. Rogers, we would have to square that up with the retirement system. And there may be an impact there.
I think it was just a matter of the department heads keeping, and finance, keeping the date of that change. And the accrual hours at that point would be at this rate. The accrual hours past that point would be at this rate. To clarify what I said earlier, it's the accrual.
Right.
A 12-hour shift is 12 hours sick or vacation, is how we're doing on the sheriff's and EMS now.
So I guess my question there is, if you take that day of leave, is that counted as a full day, or what happens to those extra 2 hours in the retirement system? Are you losing those in the retirement system?
No, you're still looking at a 12-hour day. I think that's what they had to clear up on the bad side, is when you're scheduled to work a day, your day is understood to be a 12 or an 8 or a 10 in this case. And that's where the issue came in at the sheriff's office. A lot of the seniors were like, well, I'll just go back to the road, because I'm working 8 hours a day times 5 days a week, and they get both the holidays and all that stuff. It would work out better for me and more faith to the retirement if I worked 12-hour shifts. But they're like, no, I'll stay here because I'm that close to getting out of here. So, did that open up a can of worms? Sure, absolutely it did, because you're 3 or 4 years out, go back to the road, work 12-hour shifts, you get 12 hours of accrual of retirement time.
Yeah.
That kind of doesn't take long to balance that up.
Right.
Versus your 8 that you're getting as admin. So, but it's something we're trying to do to help all the way across the county, at least for the emergency side.
I'll move to approve this. I think we can control it in the budget. I'll move to approve this.
All right, motion by Commissioner Shows, second by Commissioner Rogers. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item B is old business, OSHA Safety Director, in your packet. The Law Director's Office was speaking on this, so I don't know if there's anything to discuss or new to add. This is requested, I think, removed from the full commission agenda back in March. And I assume this is good to go this month, Mr. Law Director, or do you guys have anything?
I've got nothing to add past my last draft I sent.
Feel like it's good to go?
What's the draft in the agenda? What's the main person in the agenda? Who's the main person?
Who's the main person?
The main person.
No, it says OSHA Safety Director.
Yeah, who's the main person for that? At the bill.
I thought it was like, I thought it was the county mayor.
I think it's supposed to be county mayor or his designee. And it says, I think it still says the HR director in there.
I think, yes, it's going to be.
I think that's the only change. There's something else, that's the only change.
I thought that was the revision we sent out with those changes.
You know where that was in this,
That was the online one.
Here it is right here, page 17.
17. Yeah, this wasn't updated. Oh, sure.
so, was this the only spot that this happened?
That's the only part I've seen it.
So, do we want to change that to the county mayor?
County mayor or his designee, it gives them some latitude to designate who you wish for that.
So, I'll make a motion to amend this on page 17 to basically file a petition with the county mayor office or his designee, or the county mayor or his designee.
Well, should I say this, to make the county mayor or his designee the safety, OSHA safety director.
Okay.
So in case we're missing it somewhere, somewhere else.
Yeah, to clear this up, the word Cheryl Lewis Smith appears to be replaced with the mayor
Or designee. I'll make a motion for that. Second by Commissioner Keener.
I see that, 'cause it's right here also.
Okay. So anywhere in this document that it says Cheryl Lewis Smith, we're going to change to county mayor and/or county mayor's designee. We got a motion, we got a second, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Hold on.
Wait, we can clean that up. Wait, in front of there, it says Human Resources Director in one spot, so.
Correct, that's on page
But
7.
yeah, that's easy to clean up.
Well, we didn't do the know you yet, so I'm gonna, I didn't vote yet. I'm going to vote with, that passes. I'm going to amend this, so I'll just make another motion on this just to clean up, anywhere it says Human Resource Director, swap that with county mayor and or designee. well. So, got a second on that? Second by Commissioner Rogers, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. So that passes. All right, new business, veteran services reports, presentation, do you have anything to add, or?
So we've been out to county quite a bit, we go over 100 miles. One of the things I highlighted is we had a veteran, or potentially spouse, called in, she wanted some help getting a VA home loan. Turned out that her husband was, he passed away, he had cancer after the Gulf War. So we were not only able to help a young lady as a business owner from Gallatin, not only able to help her get eligible for a VA home loan, but also eligible to get a DIC payment of $1,500 a month for the rest of her life, because her husband had passed from something that VA does. So this is one of the ways we helped out some of the folks in our county, really good about it. So,
All right, awesome. Thank you, great job. There's no action on this after, so. Item B is Sumner County Judicial Commissioner Annual Report and Presentation. We are, what's your first name again? All right, that's right. So, I'm going to speak to this and,
Okay, does everyone have a copy of that report, or would you like one? I brought extra copies, just so you kind of know what you're looking at. Tennessee Code annotated 40-1-111 requires, that statute is appointment of judicial commissioners. That statute requires that once a year, a public hearing be held to review the effectiveness of the judicial commissioners program for the court system. I began submitting that report in 2008 when Leah Denham made the supervisor over the program, and I followed that same process every year. I would get the information to now Eric Sittler's office. They would get that on the full county commission agenda meeting for March. That statute also requires that the result of that hearing is filed with the chairman of the House of Representatives and the chairman of the state Senate by April 1st. So my apologies, last month it came before this committee, and I wasn't aware of that process because it had always gone through Leah Denham's office. This is the first year that I've had to do the full process. So when it came before you guys, no one knew what they were looking at or why it was required. The statute requires that public hearing be held. Typically what happens, I will forward that information to Eric Sittler's office the 1st of February. The statute also requires that a 30-day notice be published for the public to have input into the effectiveness of the program. And so when that got tabled in March, we had to start that process all over again. That report of the numbers, the responsibilities that are spelled out in the statute, what a judicial commissioner can and cannot do, issuance of warrants, issuance of amendments to jail, search warrants, orders of protection, those type of things. So we break it down and put those numbers in there, what the judicial commissioner's current responsibilities are, what those numbers look like. So that's why that is before you at this time. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Are these taking the place of constables?
No. It's a different, constables are more law enforcement. The magistrates or judicial commissioners are neutral. We're more like administrative judges. It's not required to have a law degree. We are basically the buffer between law enforcement and the court system. We have to find probable cause before an officer is issued a warrant. And the reason for that, of course, our current law system was brought over from England, but the law enforcement and the courts had kind of blended into one, and they were arrested because they were guilty, and they were guilty because they were arrested. So our form of judicial commissioners were put in, and they were supposed to be lay people. They were never intended to be lawyers or police officers or judges necessarily. That doesn't prevent them from being one. But what it was a group of lay people that were that buffer between law enforcement and the court to make sure that that officer had cause before they arrested this person and took their freedom away and introduced them into the court system. So we are completely 100% neutral and detached. We do have current judicial commissioners that are former law enforcement officers. We've had judicial commissioners with law degrees. Most of us, we have a former school teacher here. We've had people that worked in business, all facets of life. We try to keep a good mix of everyone, because we're supposed to look just like the people that are coming before us, before they're introduced into the court system. We currently have 8 full-time and 1 part-time, so 9 total. And when the department was started in 2006, there were 12 that were all part-time. Leah Denham made me full-time in 2008 and put me over the department. In 2015, I believe it was when we put the second General Sessions Court in and appointed Mike Carter, Judge Thompson in Circuit Court and Chancellor Oliver in Chancery Court asked for some relief in General Sessions, so they kicked orders of protection down to General Sessions Court. And because of the 24/7 nature of the judicial commissioners, we were asked to start issuing the orders of protection. That's when most of the part-time positions went to full-time, and we kind of had that shift. Prior to that, they were all part-time. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What was Leah's role? I'm hearing her name mentioned with a lot of authority in making decisions.
Well, initially, the judicial commissioners were put under the law director's office. In 2021, Anthony Holt moved us out from under Leah and put us directly under him. I don't know a lot of the reasons behind that.
What year was it?
I think it was 2021. I believe it was 2 years ago. I think July 1st of 2021 was when that became effective. But prior to that, from 2006 until 21, we were under the law director's office.
What relationship do you have with the sheriff's department?
We are in their building, they're gracious enough to give us space there. Of course, the people that we are processing are the arrestees, and of course, they're going to be in the jail. There's always a little bit of friction sometimes between law enforcement and the magistrates because we deny their warrants, but we have a pretty good working relationship with them, so they're gracious enough to give us space. We currently have 2 sets of offices because of orders of protection. We have one that primarily does the criminal side, setting bail, dealing with bond conditions for victims of crimes, and then we have a separate office that's more civil. That's where the orders of protection are done.
Go ahead. You mentioned that this department was implemented in December 2006 to more accurately comply with TCA 40-1-111. Was this, I guess, the judicial commissioner program created under that statute? Or
It was.
This is a statute that was passed in 2006 or 2005?
That statute always existed. Prior to that, there were 3, they were night clerks under Mahalia Hughes at the time. She was the county court clerk. And they used court clerks to sign warrants, set bail, those kind of things. There are strict limits, there are statutory limits what the clerks can set for bail. What happened prior to 2006, there was a civil rights attorney that filed a lawsuit in Sumner County. For some reason, he withdrew that lawsuit, went to Wilson County, and either settled or won the lawsuit there, but in the interim, Sumner County went to the judicial commissioner's program. The reason for that, prior to that, we were, I'm just going to be honest, we were holding people without bail in some instances, which is highly unconstitutional. The only thing that we can hold a person without bail for is some type of a capital offense, first-degree murder, that type of thing. But in other instances, we were holding people on temporary or ex parte orders of protection. They were held without bail. They never saw a magistrate, never saw a judge. If you look at this past weekend, if they came in on a Thursday night, they were held in jail until Monday morning with no paperwork. They were just being held without a charging instrument, without a minimus, without anything. Those are the things that going to the judicial commissioner program addressed, because the clerks don't have authority to issue the ex parte orders of protection. They don't have the authority to sign search warrants. A lot of things have changed. I believe it was 2012, the state legislature changed the DUI laws, and they put a lot of mandatory bond conditions or conditions of release that require that we issue transdermal alcohol measuring ankle bracelets. It measures the amount of alcohol being released through your skin. There are some circumstances that require we issue ignition interlock devices prior to conviction. It's a condition of release. There are a lot of stipulations in there. Some of them aren't possible. We can order pretrial drug and alcohol treatment in a facility, but there's not enough bed space to do that pre-trial. The courts pretty much keep all those tied up, so we don't necessarily do that. But a lot of those things have happened since the judicial commissioner's department was put in place.
So, well, I guess, going to Commissioner Hyde's question, how did it get created? I mean, did the commission vote on this creating 2006?
It did.
So by resolution, obviously.
I'm assuming it was, Coach Calvin Short, Bobby Ridings, and I were the three night clerks prior to the implementation of this program. So December 15th of 2006, we were grandfathered in as the first three judicial commissioners, and then I think there were 9 other part-time judicial commissioners that were added at that time, and I know all of those were appointed.
So the county commission.
Through the county commission, right.
And elects each of those judicial commissioners, because we've had those reviews come in before, but there's never been an explanation, it's been more of a pass-through item, but, so the county commission, I guess, in 2021, it was, I guess, is oversight, you say it was under the law director's office and then pushed to the county mayor's office for oversight, explain that, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm not certain all of the dynamics that cause that to happen.
I mean, but like, what does oversight mean? I mean, just what does that mean? Is it?
Well, yeah, I'm not certain why it was put under the law director's office in the beginning. That statute, 41-111, basically says that the judicial commissioners can be appointed by the legislative body, the county commission, or by the general sessions judges. Sumner County decided to have them appointed by the judicial commissioner. Now, also in that, the county commissioners. Also in that statute, there are statutory limits to how long we hold those positions. Currently, all of the judicial commissioners are on a 1-year appointment. This is a weird hybrid position that most people can't wrap their brain around, because I don't know of anything else that's like it. We're kind of a hybrid between elected officials and hired employees. We are appointed to fill a term of office for 1 year. The statute also says that, however, they cannot be appointed for a term to exceed 4 years. So in that sense, it's like an elected official. But again, under that, it makes it extraordinarily hard to hire and retain and attract people, because most people, if they're in a good steady job already, they're not going to give that up to come for a 1-year appointment. But that's what the statute requires, is no less than 1 year, but no more than 4-year appointment.
So last month, I can't remember, was this reviewing this program, or was this a person up for review? It's not in the minutes, I can't remember the whole program.
It is, the statute requires that there's a public hearing.
Or we review the program once a year, not just appointing those judicial magistrates. I think we did in December or November, I guess it was
Right.
December.
Yeah.
20.
We're also on the agenda in December because our appointments end December 15th.
Sure.
So that's why we were on the agenda in December, was just for the reappointment.
I don't know if there was a, Chairman,
No, go ahead.
Good.
We all hear things differently and interpret things differently, but I very well remember the night that this came before the county commission, and I think I may be the only one that was here at that time, for the 24th. But I left that meeting thinking that there was no option. This was being done throughout the state of Tennessee. Now, what I'm detecting here is there is an option, whether we have a judicial commissioner. So my question
Commissioners Association of Tennessee, so they would know exactly how many counties. A lot of the smaller counties that are on more of a circuit type where, one judge does 2 or 3 or 4 counties. But I'd have to get that number. If I had to guess, I would say probably close to 3/4 of them. I know a lot of the smaller counties didn't. I was on the board of directors for the Judicial Commissioners Association for 1 year, and one of the things they were trying to do is get more uniformity statewide. Every county you go to, it's strikingly different what they do. As far as the responsibilities that we currently have, no, there is not an alternative to, you can shift all the orders of protection back to circuit and chancery. They're gonna swamp about that, but there's a lot of responsibilities that we do. That statute also says in other court actions that the General Sessions judges, they decide what our responsibilities are. Not the county commission. The responsibilities that are handed to us are granted by the General Sessions judges. That's where the effectiveness of how we're serving the court comes in. That would be better suited to ask the judges. Of course, I'm going to defend the judicial commissioners, but the effectiveness of the program would be a better question to ask the judges, the General Sessions Court.
Mr. Chairman, it says in the opening paragraph, the chief legislative body of any county having a population of less than 200,000 or a population of not less than 270,000 or 76,000, no more than 277,000 according to the 1970 federal census or any subsequent federal census may appoint, and the chief census or any subsequent federal census may initially appoint. So it's legislative body appointing these commissioners, and then it gives the list here of all the duties under the...
Well, there are other subsections. If you keep reading, there's a lot of those population references in there. And if you look at the populations, one of those was Trousdale County when they went to a metropolitan form of in there. Robertson County has one that's representative. They opted out of the state-funded mandatory continuing legal education. The state pays for it. But that for some reason they opted out of that. But there's a lot of those population stipulations in there. And there's another one that Eric and I got into with the 800,000, whether or not this report was even mandated by the statute, and we came to the conclusion it was. Eric did, but yeah, if you read those, most of those population carve-outs are for specific counties. That's why there's so many different ones in that statute, if you look all the way through it.
And it also says here, the term of office for a judicial commissioner shall be established by the county legislative body, but not such term shall exceed 4 years.
Correct.
You said that.
Commissioner Shepard.
Just got a couple questions, sorry. Kind of summarize here. You're appointed by the county commission. Your day-to-day duty assignments come from the court system.
Correct.
But you report to the county mayor, correct?
Yes.
Why that last one? I mean, I guess, what things are you doing for the county mayor or the law director? And I'm not saying people, I'm just like, what are you doing for them that isn't dictated to you by the courts?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
But earlier, like you said, that the whole point of this was to have philosophically something of a barrier between the court system and the law enforcement. So,
as far as making the decisions about whether a warrant is issued, to introduce that person into the court system. we make that decision before the courts are ever even aware it's in existence. That decision's already made. So there's no conflict there between what we do and what the courts do, other than the responsibilities in that statute. It just says that the general sessions judges can decide what responsibilities. Just to give you an example of something that no other county I know of does this, except Sumner County, but our general sessions judges allow us to hear public intoxication cases. You know, the people that get arrested for public intoxication, PI, especially through the holidays, they don't want 20 or 30 of those jamming up, get the population of the jail up just over a weekend. So they allow us to actually hear those cases. That statute, one of the other requirements is that judicial commissioners can hear small cases. Now, when we hear those, the judges have stipulated that we just order them to time served. We're not sentencing people to 30 days in jail on a C misdemeanor like public intoxication. However, that they have delegated that to us to allow us, because we're there 24/7, we can go ahead and hear those public intoxication cases, find them guilty, release them on time served, and get them out of the jail. That way we're not jamming up the sheriff's office and getting their population up just in a really short time.
That's my next question. What happens if tomorrow, and I think I have an answer to this, because I recall a conversation with the judge about it, but what happens if tomorrow you guys disappear?
We will have, the judges in Sumner County will have to sign every search warrant, every minimus, they'll have to do that.
All of these numbers that you have in here.
Well, no, not all of the numbers. The court clerks can, there are limitations. There's a different statute. I wish I could recall the number off the top of my head, but there is a statute that allows court clerks to set bond, but there's a maximum allowable bond of $50,000 regardless of what the charge is. We routinely have six-figure bonds for, just a case in point, a couple of weeks ago, we had a case where they had a kilo of...
About we, you mean the judicial...
The judicial commissioner process.
Can only go up to 50,000.
Correct.
But you can go further.
Yeah, there's no limit on what bail we can set.
So there's this gap.
Correct.
You've got the really, really small stuff, a clerk can handle it.
Correct.
For anything over that, it needs to go to a judge, but there aren't enough judges. Is that like the...
Correct.
Just in terms of volume?
Well, just the sheer numbers, and as luck would have it, we have one of our midnight commissioners on vacation this week, so we had one commissioner working last night. He had 9 defendants come in within 30 minutes, so he called me. I went in to help him, so I went in at midnight last night. We had about 16 people come in 2 hours, from 11 o'clock at night to 2 or 3 in the morning. It's not possible for the judges to handle that kind of volume, nor the court clerks. We had a DUI search warrant last night, so that the judges again are not going to be bothered all night and for all these cell phone search warrants. One of the things that kind of precipitated us doing the search warrants was the Supreme Court throwing out that an officer can search someone's cell phone incident to arrest. Just a few short years ago, if they arrested someone, regardless of the charge, they could go through their cell phone and look for evidence of whatever the crime was. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court struck that down as a Fourth Amendment violation because, I mean, most of us now have our banking, our bill paying, we have everything in our phone. And so now they have to have a search warrant just to look in a cell phone. And we do dozens and dozens of those. So it's not possible for the judges to sign. There's just too many of them.
There were, some years ago, the county commission was more like a blend between today and your role. Is that correct? It was, because the county commission could issue warrants and, that kind of thing. I know Mr. Hyde and I have spoken about this.
Yeah, that was years and years ago.
Years ago.
It wasn't.
But it wasn't, that these didn't cross paths in like the early 2000s, right? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that statute that we keep referring to, 40-1-111, it strictly prohibits a county commissioner from being a judicial commissioner at the same time. That would be a conflict.
That probably came out around the time that it was.
Probably so.
Commissioner Klein?
This is a much more mechanical question. So you have 9 people, one is part-time, the rest are full-time, and you're manning around the clock, 365 days a year.
Yes.
Where are your offices?
They are in the visitation lobby at the sheriff's office.
Okay. Are you moving to the new courthouse when that happens? Or
No.
You're staying in there?
We're staying in the sheriff's office.
There are a lot, make room for you.
Well, if I can interject here, there's a sound reason for that too, though.
Yeah.
So if you want to elaborate on that.
And the reason we're staying in that building. Well, currently, we do all of our interviews by video conferencing, so that way the jail doesn't have to pull them out into any kind of public space. Set up a monitor and a camera, so we do the video interviews from our office. Prior to COVID, we went in the cell with the inmate, and we did our business in the cell with, that was extraordinarily dangerous. And again, we've had commissioners get assaulted by inmates before, and again, we've had a pretty wide range. Just until a few short years ago, we had a couple of our commissioners that were 80 years old. They were retired from public life and took a part-time job as a commissioner, and you know, we've had a few of them. I myself, I don't know if y'all are aware of my situation, but I was held hostage with 27 citizens and had a shotgun stuck in my face, and I've got pictures of it on my phone I'd love to show you, but that's neither here nor there. But it's extraordinarily dangerous because where we are, the public can come and go at will. It's in a public area of the jail, and they can come and go. That's where all the visits are scheduled. So it is extraordinarily dangerous, but we're not going to the new building. The inmates are in the jail, we do our business in the jail, so that's just kind of a common sense decision.
Commissioner Hyde, we're going to close this down.
I have two questions. You have, from what I'm hearing, a great deal of authority as a judicial magistrate. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So my question would be, my first question would be, we elect you, but who sets the salary and the responsibilities, if there are any beyond what the statute states? Who do you work with to establish all of that, especially salary?
The responsibilities are with the sessions judges, but the salary is entirely through the county commission.
Okay.
It's just part of the budget process.
And my second question, I think I know what was happening about 2021, that this change was made. And I won't say that to anyone because I just don't think it needs to be said at this time, but you or the judicial magistrates had to have some kind of questioning. Why is this happening, that we're being changed from the county law director's office to, and I'm not talking about the mayor being a political person, but changing it to a political office? You had to ask questions. Why are we changing bosses here? What was told to you?
That was precisely my concern at that time, and I expressed that with Anthony Holt at the time because, you know, under the law director's office, we did have a little bit of a buffer that kind of kept politics out of our position, which it should be. The magistrates have got to be comfortable in the decisions they're making, not feeling like that by any political pressure, not from the judges, not from the district attorney's office, not from the county commission. We have to be neutral and detached. Again, before any warrant is issued, it requires, you know, that a neutral and detached magistrate make a probable cause determination before that warrant is issued. and we can't bow to pressure from anyone. Again, we reflect the public, we're that buffer. Now, to address your concerns, that there was a major sensitive issue that I know you're aware of, that we won't discuss, but when I discussed that with Anthony, he said that Leah had too much pressure and responsibility on her, and that he was removing the judicial commissioners out from under her authority and placing it directly under him. And of course, at the time, we didn't know who was going to be elected to replace Anthony. And he said to me, I don't mind saying this, I hope he doesn't mind, but he said, have I ever gotten involved with your department and tried to tell you how to run your department? And I said, no, sir, you have not. But we also know you're not running for re-election, and we don't know who your successor is going to be. And they could be. Nothing personal, John. But at the time, we didn't know who was going to be elected into that position when that happened. So there are some things that were going on over here that I'm too far removed from. I don't know all of the reasons why we were removed. I know part of it was budgetary, because of a request for a new position, and part of that became budgetary, and I agree with the decision that was made at that time, so for what that's worth.
Under what budget is your salary?
We have our own budget, our own department, so we're under the judicial commissioner's budget line.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say, as a follow-up on my question, that it seems like the county commission is in the position of electing these people. But when it comes to making decisions that could be political, like moving them from one area to another, or other types of decisions, salary and things like that, we have no input at all. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. If I'm going to elect someone, I want to have some kind of input on it.
Mr. I don't remember ever voting on this as a commission. That's a problem. The fact that it seems like this was done inappropriately, and it wasn't done correctly, so if it was done. So, as part of this, we're going to move forward with this. I would make a motion to restore that oversight back to the law director's office as it was intended from 06 to 21. So second by Commissioner Teacher. Mr. Mayor, discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in, 'cause my name was mentioned several times. When I first learned of this, I was really surprised it was under my authority. Personally, I would have thought it'd been under General Sessions Judge's authority. On further reflection, I see why you need internal controls that kind of separates them from both the sheriff and General Sessions. Having said that, I think it should be out of political control. I think it should be under the law director's purview for the, quote, day-to-day operations of the judicial commission. So I would certainly support that.
Well, my motion is to approve this, you got to amend it with the condition that the establishment of the day-to-day goes back to the law director as it was originally voted on, and to our knowledge, it was never passed by the commission to change that. So we're just basically reestablishing something that shouldn't have ever happened, basically. Is there any further discussion or questions on this?
I have one very short one. With the maximum term of 4 years, this is probably just an uneducated question, I don't know, but how are you still in your position in 2006? Because it's more than 4 years. That may be a stupid question.
Renewed every year.
Well, renewed every year, but it said not to exceed 4 years.
Well, for several of those years, and again, I've got Jennifer Hilly with me, she's my daytime supervisor on call on days, I'm on call on nights, but Jennifer and I were on 4-year appointments as supervisors. Again, because of the political climate, both of our 4-year terms expired, and they did not renew those for whatever reason, so that's why I say currently we are all on 1-year appointments. I would like to get all of the commissioners on 2-year appointments at some point, But let me take this opportunity, if any of you would like to come over and just kind of see what we do and how we do it, and wherever we do it, I would encourage any and all of you to come. I'd love to do that, so you can actually get a hands-on look at what we do.
So we'll wrap this one, so we have to.
Okay, but I'd like to get all of them on a 2-year appointment, just because of that uncertainty. Every year, everyone starts getting nervous, and it is extraordinarily hard to find people to fill this position.
Just to clarify, you have to be renewed in every year.
Every year,
Okay,
December
I
15th.
had to get that in my.
Right, we're only in December, the county commission meeting in December every year.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mr. Robert?
I just want to be clear, whatever this topic turns into, that at least the committee agrees he's complied with his standard of reporting, because that is a requirement for him, which is why it's on the agenda. So whatever dovetails out of that is fine.
I mean, yeah, but our motion is to approve this report, basically, and mine was with added amendments to restore that oversight back to the water records office as originally intended. And as far as we know, I never voted on this in 2020. So, questions been called, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, now we got to vote on the motion. Now we just call a question. So, all in favor say aye of approving the judicial commissioner and report as well as the oversight. Aye. All right, any opposed? No questions, no called. All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. Thanks. Item C under new business is the opioid resolution. We passed this last month. This is a little bit more involved, I guess, as far as like how this is going to operate, as far as this program, Mr. Law Director, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So you guys wrote this? Yes. Is there anything that need to be pointed out, or anybody have any questions?
There are, the state is getting quite a bit of funds, a whole lot of funds, and just need to be very clear that the money that we do receive, the state is mandating what it spends on. It has to be opioid related, but due to the amount of funds that are coming into the state, they are broadening their term of opioid related to some kind of off-the-cuff applications that we need to be aware of, but ultimately, this is to make sure we've got everything we need to receive that money and to spend it under its terms.
Are there any questions on this? Motion by Commissioner Hyde to approve, second by Commissioner Schoen. All in favor say aye.
I'm getting to you real quick.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, just one question here. I'm all for this, but just, the second to last paragraph, this looks like it's gonna be a big group. Is it possible to trim this down? What's the rationale, I guess, behind all of
It's
this?
5 total members.
So the way it says is 5 members of the county commission plus.
Okay, so 9.
Yeah, so 9 total. So I just wanted to know what the rationale was for those.
I guess I want to speak to that. This involves the areas that the money, in which the money could be spent. And commissioners are pretty smart people, but they're not that smart. And need help in deciding from law enforcement, from mental health people, and from drug enforcement people, ideas on how this money could be spent. I would, even though I'm an educator with advanced degrees, I would have no idea what you would do for, if I was on the committee for, to help opioid patients. So it's just to add expertise to it. I mean, you could, I guess, cut down the number of commissioners, but I think you'd probably make a pretty good committee, considering they're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay. That answers my question.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D is the EMS operations resolution. It was attached in the packet, passed out the emergency services, Commissioner Rogers has passed out a little bit of a revised, I think there was some questions or concerns or lack of clarity. I think that the previous one, there was something that actually, I told Mr. Rogers afterwards that was not statutorily correct. And so we think this has been cleaned up in this version, but, I'm just going to explain this how I understand it, so, and then we'll open this up for discussion. I'll make a motion for discussion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Rogers, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, all right. Is that 1988 is when the ambulance service was created in Sumner County, as far as being a part of a county operations government. And from 1988 to 2008, for 20 years, I'm going to say, day-to-day operations, I think, is a very loose word to use, and the only reason I think it's being used is because there was a resolution created in 2008 that specified that language, taking the day-to-day operations away from the Emergency Services Committee and putting it in the hands of the county executive at the time. So that's why I think this language, it's a little bit of a misnomer in my opinion, a little confusing, because that day-to-day operations, my understanding is, and I think statutorily, is that the commission does not have the authority, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, to dictate how the literal day-to-day operations of the emergency services, of the ambulance service operates in the sense of like approving vacation or sick days or personnel, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things. The old resolution basically did claim from 2008, which is listed on page 2 of this, and it's talking about replaces that resolution 0805-05, that the committee still retained its, I'll say, day-to-day authority or overseeing of that loosely, in the sense that anything that comes before the county, the Emergency Services Committee, i.e. the Budget Committee, or the full commission still has to approve it. Whether that's somebody crashes an ambulance and there's, 4 people injured or something, that's going to come to the county law director's office. It's still going to come through a process. The Emergency Services Director is still going to handle that process, and I don't see it anything personally that is a difference. It's almost like of the county executive, or what it was at the time, the county executive's office versus the committee, something coming up, because anything that comes before the commission, comes before anybody, it's still got to go through the committee process and get approval for anything major, and the Emergency Service Director still has that day-to-day operations and authority and oversight for managing that department, and that's kind of my understanding, and it's just basically kind of restoring this process to how it was prior to 2008 for 20 years, and getting a little, and just I'm cutting out the middleman, for lack of better words, a little bit. So that is kind of my understanding of how this is intended. Again, there are statutes governing how this operates, and it's almost like the library board. The county commission appoints the library board members. The library board members, therefore, they hire and fire the directors of each library. The library board members do not have the authority to hire and fire subordinates of the libraries. They just control the directors. And so my understanding is that kind of things where there's just direct oversight over the director, in part of that management day-to-day, and Commissioner Schiff.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a step back from this one. That clause, the day-to-day operation, I guess, and I understand the intent here after what you're saying, but I guess, to me, this starts to get a question of like, what do we want to be? I could tell you that if I sat on I don't sit on the EMS committee, but if I did, I would not be able to oversee the day-to-day operations or have the capacity to receive a daily report, anything like that. Now, if we were talking specifically about who the authority is to hire and fire, that's the allusion to the library board is I think potentially a good and fair one, but like when you say day-to-day operations, that feels to me like we're getting we're signing ourselves up for work that I don't, you know, I don't know that we've got the capacity to do. That phrase.
Well, again, I mean, that's why I kind of led with the fact that I think it's confusing to say day-to-day. The problem is that the literal resolution 08 use those words day-to-day to basically shift oversight, and to me, it's more oversight, I think is a more appropriate word, and that can be debatable as well, of how it was from 1988 until 2008. I mean, so it's like for 2 decades, it was just fine, and then it just changed for no reason, kind of like...
Well, was there a reason, I guess?
No, there was no reason really given, that I'm understanding. I know that the chairman of the the Emergency Services Committee at the time was Commissioner Bond, who was a lieutenant with the Andersonville Police Department, detective, was against that, as the chairman. And so, you know, he had a full-time job. But that was, I understand that, that's why I wanted to bring this into this committee, kind of like, let's hold this for a second to discuss this and clean this language or talk about what we need to. But Commissioner Klein?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Matt, and when you're talking about micromanaging, and, you know, anybody who's been in business any amount of time knows that you hire good people to run the operation, and nobody on that EMS committee has the time to, on a day-to-day basis, oversee things. They all have full-time jobs. So, maybe the wording could be changed to something more appropriate, but as I see it, you hire a great chief. That chief runs the day-to-day operations, and if he needs any guidance, he comes to the EMS committee in order to do it. In actuality, there would probably be less control. I know that the people at the emergency at EMS, they're all concerned that their vacation days are going to be affected and stuff, and that's just not going to happen, because everything has to be done by committee. Darrell cannot say, this is the way it's going to be. And so, I think the process, and the fact that it did work so well for 20 years or more, I think there's nothing wrong with it. It takes something off of John's plate. It allows the chief to be the chief, to oversee things, and if there needs to be a course change or some direction, the committee that's in charge of that would oversee that change. So I think it maybe is bad wording, maybe, but as Jeremy mentioned, that's the way it was in 1988, so.
Well, I also tend to agree with Matt. Now, I understand this, you hire good people and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have the expertise. I mean, I had, in a battalion, I had battalion aid station, I knew how that worked, but I wasn't the hands-on person for that. And I knew what had to be done, but,
well, the question.
We need to clean up the language. That's, I mean, what's the operations, something like that, that's just day-to-day.
John doesn't have the expertise here.
Yeah, I know.
And so, and that's why the committee is who the committee is. You've got people who have been involved in emergency services over the years, and I mean, that's why they were picked by the committee on committees.
Mr. Chairman, I regret that there was this confusion with the language on this resolution. Actually, I think it does need to be pointed out that individually county commissioners have no authority whatsoever. When we step in any county office as an individual, we're just John Q. Footman. We have no authority whatsoever, except when we meet as a body to pass legislation. On the other hand, I think I believe that everyone at this table, probably me with my age, is more interested in having the best qualified people answer a telephone call to come to your help than anyone. And I've always been very proud of the EMS service and the services they provide. And luckily, I've only had to call them to my house once for a 94-year-old mother-in-law. day-to-day operations would remain, which was always the intention with the department and the chief, with general oversight by the emergency medical services. I make that motion.
I'll second that. Second by Commissioner Jones.
You want it?
Okay.
I actually was,
Morris, go ahead. You want to discuss that motion?
Yes, because I was gonna recommend the language, and I was writing, instead almost word for word what I was writing here. I think I would recommend amending that motion, we just go ahead and amend the language. The language I'd recommend, we would strike, have determined that the day-to-day operations from the
So
word has.
let's start. Are you in the caption, or where are you?
I'm down on there.
We'll start with the caption first. The caption needs to be cleaned up.
Well,
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, we can do that too. And maybe do we just want to turn it back to the laws, or do we want to try to amend it here?
Well, the motion, that,
because I was gonna move to make one amendment.
well, you can,
That's what I-
you got something?
Let me hear what you have to say, and then I may just accept
All right.
my motion. You're the second.
So it would say, I'm going to be striking,
So which-
when you're down, when you're at therefore be it resolved, start at the second line, the word have. Strike that all the way.
So I don't see a second line that says have.
After Health and Emergency Services Committee have,
Have
Show me
determined.
because I'm not seeing.
Oh, you're on the wrong one anyway.
Hey, man, are you in the draft?
I'm on the
I'm on, that's why I'm in the wrong spot. All right, I'm going to withdraw this thing, because I'm working off the wrong one. I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did too, I was looking at the wrong one.
Let's get another copy of that draft.
We like to do the first one.
So, you were speaking to this draft, correct? The one that was in front of you? Mr. Hyde? Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, so,
I just want to make sure that it reads it.
well, right now, it's basically, you're moving this forward to with the law director having cleaned up the language to moving, language of day-to-day operations, basically saying oversight, but I think there's some spots where this probably needs to be looked at, so I don't know if we want to, take a little bit more time for this, or I don't know if this is ready to go to the full commission on Monday.
I don't think it is, and if we were to go through this, I can hear a fellow commissioner saying that words matter, and that we will end up debating this for 3 hours.
Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to, withdraw the legislative to see what we need to do. So if, you do have a motion to clean it up, and if somebody wanted to make an amendment to that motion, we could move to
I
approve
think
it.
by the very fact that we have some lawyers to clean it up, leaves it open to bring it back after they work on it in that house.
So we can just, without objection, move this into old business, and basically, you don't have to take any action there. So if you guys wanted to withdraw your motion, or, I mean, let's go vote on your motion.
I would like to approve the fact that we want to do this.
Okay, I like that.
With cleaned up language to come back next month, and the second is,
I would the only thing I'd like to change from that, you said a specific word when you were making that motion, and that was general oversight.
What I read here, pardon my interruption, what I've got down is change it, insert general oversight, remove the day-to-day. That gives you that general oversight of operations.
I like that.
My second stance.
All right. We're going to amend the resolution with the law director taking a look at that language and to come back next month to legislative with that amended language and amended resolution come back. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. The next one is AV recording resolution and policy. This is one that I had several commissioners this is something that he and I worked on, and it was something that he particularly specifically brought forward, was having all of the committee meetings recorded in some kind of format. Prior to 2019, when we brought this forward, none of the meetings were recorded. And I want to thank IT Department and County Mayor for getting the recording of the ceiling. I think it's a great solution, so thank you very much for that. And that was Mo's original goal for this room, so thank you for carrying out on that. That's fantastic. I think it works well. Talk about audio stuff a little bit, but it's still, the video is great on that, in my opinion. But the specific policy that came forward was the OWL. They're calling the OWL, but I'm just calling it the portable video audio device, basically, because it could change to be something else. It originally was for the commission's use and passed for the commission's use, and the commission approved a budget for that closet with a keypad for both OWL devices and laptops to be in there for the commissioners to check in and out for any kind of committee meeting. And there's a lot of committee meetings that don't get recorded that might be off-site, such as like an election commission meeting, and a commercial commissioner wants to go do that, whereas I don't think we can't tell the election commissioner to record their meetings, but definitely a commissioner can go and record on behalf, and is what we want to do, the intent. Planning commission is probably the big example, and that was the number one thing that Mo wanted recording, was the planning commission, and it's never recorded. Our system in there is different. I think we have a different contract, and so the OWL, as imperfect as it may be for larger spaces, still works for that main commission chambers. And so the goal is to have where a commissioner can still check that out of that closet, to be able to move it in and out. For, like, for example, we have two commissioners on planning commission that could check it out, and when they're done, they bring it back, and it's their name, they're responsible. And there was a sign-in sheet in there. You'll see that most of the names on there for signed up for the year and a half, 2 years we had it was me. If I wasn't setting it up and recording it, it wasn't getting done. And to our detriment, in December of 2021, the previous county mayor did have the IT department take that out of circulation, and it was a problem. And for about 9 months, it was pretty much disappeared until the new county mayor came in. So again, thank you, Mr. County Mayor, for bringing that back for the citizen side. Thanks for that. I was told from anonymous sources, a whistleblower from the IT department, that there was nothing wrong with the owls. They were just even shipped back to the labs in order to get a shipping label. It was just the previous administration did not want these meetings recorded and was obfuscating for the citizens, and that's a big problem. And so what I think is going well, but I'm trying to just bring this back to the original intent of the commission, is that I guess by passing this, because we passed 2 resolutions, and I was involved in that process. Again, Mo was carrying that, kind of led the spearhead on getting emails to the county commissioners, and Mo kind of pushed forward with the videos, and I was on the ad hoc for this. By passing this, is establishing, kind of refreshing the IT policy that was written in this packet, for your packet.
Move to approve.
So part of that, I would just ask for discussion, is just Mr. Mayor, once you need to get that keypad back on that door that was taken off that the commission approved, and IT department still responsible for software and everything like that, but this kind of, you'll notice in our commission rules, there's a lot of emphasis on the chairman setting the video up and setting it down, and that kind of like went away. That would still be effective as chairman responsible for hitting the wall, hitting the owl, setting it up. We're going to continue this part process, and I'll leave it up to the IT department over as far as we need to continue this owl device on during these meetings. I don't know, I think that's just how long that needs to happen anymore, but it was just really just so commissioners can check that owl back in and out for meetings like board of zoning appeals, planning commission, election commission, other things, and have that ability for the freedom for what the commission actually purchased it for, because it was for us and not any other departments. Another department wants the owl, they can have their own policy and buy it. So we got a motion to second, any discussion?
I have a question, yeah, and maybe it's a question that may be for somebody else at a different time, but why can't we record the planning commission?
You can. We talk about the main. In my understanding, it deals with the software and service agreement. It's just for the county commission meetings, so it'd be an additional cost. My understanding is what I was told by the previous county clerk, so that it's a monetary issue. So the hour device is similar. You guys can check it out, plug it in, it's paid for, and there's no extra cost.
I didn't know that.
So it's a software issue. So that, because that is a totally different system that we outsource, and I don't think even our IT department has any access to it. As you know, it's a different beast, which is worth looking into something different if we need to. The previous commission thankfully put that in place in 2017. But that is separate, that's why that's not a part of the process. So, any other, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, the only question I have, I was kind of reading through this and have no problem putting it in the room for planning commissions. We are, as soon as we move that microphone, we are phasing the owl out in here and going with the permanent system. But yeah, it still needs to be available for planning commission and so forth, so.
I figured that as much in seconds.
Yeah, but my only concern is I want to make sure that we still maintain the uploading. When I say we, the IT department uploads to the YouTube page. That way we have accountability of the upload.
Yeah, that's written in the policy as well as written.
I didn't quite understand that.
Well, and I'll go ahead and say this, you're talking about me. I took the videos off the owl last, because the previous IT department, the county mayor weren't doing it, and it would take 2 or 3 weeks to put it on there. So in order, I would put it on YouTube so citizens can see something at a timely manner. And so if there's any complaint about it, it's me who did it. And so I took the videos afterward, I put it USB drive, and I would just go put it on YouTube so citizens was like, we can't see the meeting, and I was sick of it too. And I was the only one doing anything about it. So the responsibility for maintenance, update, but the hours need to stay in that clause, that's what the resolution does, intent for, obviously, if we're going to a permanent solution and not necessarily want to do this as a redundant backup, that it's still every week or every month, there's still meetings that we as commissioners that are asking for all the time, and I've had multiple commissioners ask. And so it's kind of got a little bit of that sticking point, we haven't had time to deal with it yet, but that was it.
Paragraph 4 seems to address this explicitly. It says, within 2 business days of recording, a recording meeting, IT staff, consultants, or designated person will place the AV recording on the county YouTube channel and maintain acceptable links. That seems to...
Correct. And then I thought within 2 business days is fair time, is kind of what the intent was. So I didn't change that really, it was always, the spirit was 2 to 3 business days, but it was taking 2 to 3 business weeks plus. And so that was...
Yeah, and I think we have a pretty good policy in place, we get them up pretty quick.
No, yeah, you guys are doing great, you do it the next day, so I commend you guys, doing a fantastic job on that, but it was just more of that, since the commission did have a policy, we had it twice, we didn't have a lock on there, it kind of disappeared. Once that this policy addresses that needs to be back, we actually did pay for that as a condition for to do our business.
No.
So that allows a flexibility for, there's assignments, you sign it in, so on labor, we got a motion in a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, it's carried, full commission. Item F is confirmation of appointment of Robert Tuttle as IT director. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Stein, second by Commissioner Klein. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Coe?
I have no issue with this, but we've in the past had, big debates on how certain personnel are hired and making sure that folks are, the law director, which I was very much behind this, making sure that there was application process, et cetera. Again, I don't have any issue with this individually, I just would like to be consistent, that's all.
Well, the law director was, again, was done this perfectly the commission, but this is an appointment for county mayor to make, and so it's up to the commission to approve or deny. And so, if you want to make a motion, if you want to, by all means, but we got a motion on the floor to move it to the full commission for discussion and approval. Here.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Tuttle has effectively been serving as a director since our previous one left. He has ran the department. He has the education, he has the experience, he meets all criteria. I really just did not see a reason to go outside when I had somebody perfectly qualified, already knew the system inside. He's already got the rapport with the rest of the team up in IT, works well with them. It just seems appropriate that we give him the title that he's had since September. and basically put him in that role that he's already served under.
Commissioner Coyle.
Backing what the mayor just said, the rest of the crew sees him as the boss now, and they respect him as such, and it makes no sense to go out of house when they're working as well together as they are, in my opinion.
I get it, and I, phrase consistency is the hobgoblin of these minds or something like that, so maybe I've got weak mind, but we're, and having some debate right now about the EMS director, but there's no debate, there's no debate that there is debate. What fundamentally is different between IT director, Peter, and the EMS director? I know they're in scope, one is vastly larger than the other. And I know one has a committee that is assigned, but we don't have a committee on IT. So I understand those 2 points. Maybe that is sufficiently different, but what I'm really trying to get at here is understanding a consistent way for various departments to know how their directors are hired. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to
Yeah, it makes sense.
and it's not perfectly, it's not perfectly consistent now, maybe it doesn't have to be, but I just, maybe take a moment to discuss that. We don't necessarily have to change anything, but.
Commissioner Hyde?
Well, I don't think that there's any discussion necessarily on who the EMS director will be as much as how the EMS director. I don't know anybody, I don't know the chief, interim chief. He may be the one that everyone thinks is the greatest. I don't know. So the debate is not about who, it's how.
Well, I guess that's the question here. I would have the same question here. Do we need to use the same how here that we use, that we use for non-constitutional offices? Like if we're good with just accepting the IT director because they have a great resume and the county mayor makes the appointment, are we not good elsewhere? And if not, why not? In terms of how.
And I very well understand your thinking on that. I think there's a little bit of a difference in that most of us have been here to see the IT department operate under the director for quite a while, and employed for quite a while. The mayor has recommended him in that position, and so I think the difference is the knowledge, and his resume very well spells out many certifications that he has. So I think the question is our knowledge already of the person, or that's the way I see it.
Commissioner, I couldn't agree better. Having inconsistency throughout the county creates unsettled unrest among our employees. When we're asking someone to be a leader, I think that it's good that we see the job descriptions, that we see what's required of that employee, and that at least we have an understanding of what's expected of that employee. I was going on the record and say, I can remember back when I worked at the sheriff's department, under a former sheriff, there was always a misunderstanding at that department. Always. Every time somebody has an issue, it's a misunderstanding. Well, where's the paperwork? Well, we don't have paperwork around here, it's a misunderstanding. That drove me nuts as an employee of the county. And I see the same thing here with 2 positions. Where's the paperwork? Where's the expectations of the employee? And it always seems to be at the moment of the meetings. Nothing personal, but I need time to look at it. I'll ask for it to be the 30th.
Well, I'll ask you, like to make a motion to see a description, what the duties and responsibility is, what the job description is, as far as like what that is, and day-to-day responsibilities, kind of lists.
Yeah, and I'm not doubting the person because, I mean, obviously, I've been in contact with him, he works well with others and everybody around him. I just think we need to set the groundwork of what we as a county are expecting. That way it's no, what he said, what she said, well, he said, stop. It's on paper, it backs everybody up, it puts accountability where it needs to be. And I think we need to see that, we need to see those job descriptions and what's expected. I think that's where we really need to go. We've got a human resource division of the county. What's wrong with saying this is sent for received, this was revised, this is what's expected, because God forbid something happens, we hold an employee accountable to the lack of what they're doing, but they really don't know what they was expected of them to do.
So we got a motion to defer with requirements, and the motion to defer is just a simple majority, and it is debatable. So actually, we got a second for that form, we got a motion, we got a second. So discussion on the motion to defer with those items. Commissioner Hunt.
I would probably, believe it or not, vote against my friend, Darrell.
That's fine, sir.
Issue. I may be the only one, but the reason being that I think this thing was presented by the mayor, who I guess has set parameters and interviewed and all. And all we're doing at this point is someone who is through the mayor is approved or not approved. And so that's my reason.
I would like to amend the motion. Because there's the practical matter of it, and there's the consistency, right? That's what I really brought that up for. But we can do both. I would suggest amending this, not to defer, but to accept this conditional on a job description. So 60, kind of like we did, I think, with the interim county attorney. So 60 days, and then we have the...
I'll second that.
All right.
My original business.
So, we have an amendment, is that, Robert's rules, you amended a motion to defer?
You'd have to.
Huh?
You'd have to amend.
We want to defer, though, that was a motion to defer.
Did withdraw.
So would you like to withdraw your motion?
Now, because the whole thing's dead, now I'll come back again. I'll make a motion to accept this for 60 days, depending on the guidelines and a job description, and then reconsider after 60 days.
All right, I know, how about we say 2 months?
2 months. 2 months, yeah, I know you and I already know that, 2 months.
And it's come up before.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we have a motion to approve this contingent upon 2 months, up to 2 months, for getting job description, responsibilities, duties, due diligence, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any more? You get a second?
I defer my second to Darrell because I don't want to get on his bad
So
side.
Darrell seconded.
I'll back up Chairman Hyde, so we're back on level playing.
Commissioner Show had a motion, you go second.
I'll be glad to second it.
Is there any more discussion?
Before, Chairman Hyde, we'll be back on level three.
We are at 7 o'clock, we have both businesses.
Yeah.
We can bracket.
I'm just wondering if perhaps there were other people in the department that wanted to be director instead.
We got 60 days. That's interim.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? We don't have time, I'm sorry.
Please restate.
The motion is basically to approve contingent upon 60 days.
Approve the position as a interim.
Okay, as an interim position, so approve the position as an interim position.
2 months, not
2 months. With gathering job descriptions, roles, responsibilities, duties. That's the motion. It's been seconded.
I'd like to make a motion to
Okay.
The reason why is because I feel like we're right on track, but we're going to keep coming back to state it properly. I'd like to make a motion to amend, have the exact same thing, but just from here on out, we also post it. We didn't say we would post it, and I feel like that needs to be posted publicly because I mean, ultimately, that's the most transparent, fair we can be if we're another applicant.
I'll accept that, I accept that. So,
Well, you just need to second that. So you got a motion to amend the main motion for basically posting to job boards. You know, that has to have a fiduciary, it's going to have a budgetary impact, so, you want to...
that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I'm always the one to speak up on the rights of the commission and the authority of the commission to do things. I really doubt in this case, since falls under the direction of the mayor, that we can, it's up to him whether he posts it or presents a name within the department like he did this time. Those that fall under us, I think posting would probably be something we need to look at and make a standard like Darrell.
I'll just say, I understand where Commissioner Teacher is coming from and Commissioner Shea is coming from. I don't know, I'd be curious for Laura to look at this. I don't think there would anything that would preclude the commission from actually doing this. Doesn't mean the county mayor has to pay attention to it because if the commission does take applicants in, that's the commission acting, just doing that and just handing it over to the county mayor's office to consider, but it's not a requirement, I think. I think the commission would have that purview, just mine. It's because it's just acting independently, and that's just my interpretation, that's all.
My understanding of this, to use your analogy, would be up to the point of appointment, everything the commission sends to the mayor in regards to the position is informational only.
Correct.
At his discretion to make the appointment.
It would not be, there would be no binding for that, that'd be correct. So, I mean, I think it's a legitimate ask if that's what this body needs to do, but,
I'm fine with it. I think we're ready to wait.
now, there is gonna be a budgetary impact for that, so,
But we can control that in budget.
do you want to, I guess, add that to the agenda after this meeting, this next meeting, to discuss,
Yes, we can.
so your amendment is basically posted, whatever the job description, roles, responsibilities, duties, the job.
And just let folks know.
Yeah, just let people know it's a public notice, basically. We have a motion for amendment and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Commissioner Hyde, opposed. Now we're back to the main motion. Interim position, 2 months, and going through the process of reviewing all of the descriptions, roles, and responsibilities. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Item T is FEMA, this is what I had at the beginning, just to clear up, to make sure there was no confusion about what we did in legislative last month as far as opting into for the citizens' request to save the Draper House and save Old Post Office, and this is just basically moving this forward to the full commission. Since this is done as a commission action back in August, it was a commission action in April as an appropriate movement. So I want to make the motion to push this forward to the full commission. Second by Commissioner Rogers, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Commission recognition, we have 3 items. Well,
Move to group approve.
yeah, make a motion group approved by Commissioner Show, second by Commissioner Rogers, all in favor, say aye. All right, and we have zoning, we did have 2 people wanting to speak to the zoning, they weren't here at the beginning. You guys still want to speak? This is not, we're not taking action on this, this is coming to the full commission next week for you guys, just so you know. So you're free to speak, but we won't be taking action, because this is not the board meeting. Let's go to the full commission on Monday night for a public hearing. So I'll leave that up to you guys if you want to speak for 2 or 3 minutes. Think you can sign that for the zoning? I mean,
All we did, Mr. Chairman, is just post this to the next commission.
it is, I mean, but...
All we've ever done that I can remember, we don't really have.
But when they signed up for public comment, I mean, so technically can't, but I mean, I don't know if you, we're not taking action tonight, it's just a pass-through until Monday, the public hearing, so
If there are no issues, I think we're just going on to the full commission.
we're not discussing it at all. We're going to discuss it Monday in the public hearing, so that's when the commission will debate it. Good?